master the business of speaking with your hosts, Taylor and Austin. You're listening to Technically Speaking.
Welcome to another episode of Technically Speaking. We're your hosts, Taylor and Austin, and today we are talking about how to take the guesswork out of crafting presentations that blow your audiences away. Now, to help us cover this subject is Andrea Pacini, the head of Ideas on Stage UK. Now, since he's joined Ideas on Stage, he has worked with many business leaders, including clients like General Assembly, Fiverr, ISTAO Business School, as well as TEDx speakers, over 500 of them. Andrea is also the main voice of the Ideas on Stage podcast, so make sure you go check that out. Now, he specializes in working with established business owners who want to grow their audience and increase their influence through great presenting. Now, he's on a mission to change the way people think about presenting, and he's a big advocate of business as a force for good, and his 10-year vision is to help 1,000 purpose-driven entrepreneurs share their message, make an impact, and be memorable. He's also perfected a 5-step system for crafting mind-blowing presentations, and today he is sharing that with us. So without further ado, let's get into it. As always, stick around until the end to get this episode's resources, and we hope you like this one. And we are live. Welcome to the show, Andrea. I have been really looking forward to this. We're excited to have you today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, guys. Taylor, Austin, great to be here.
Yeah, so great to have you. I love like the all white room that you're in. Looks very clean.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Modern.
Yeah, especially that light. Is that a light that you have like behind the cabinet there? That's beautiful.
There's I'm trying my best, although you guys are the pros here. So I know that I can learn a lot from you from this perspective.
Well, I like it. It's awesome. And for those of you that are just listening, pop over to YouTube, check out the video version.
That's right.
Hint,
it's a lot
hint.
more fun.
Yep. So, Andrea, we were looking at your Instagram and we noticed that you know Maria Franzoni, and she's a dear friend. We love her. How do you know Maria?
Ah, wow. Yes, you know Maria as well. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we've had her on the show.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, Maria is a very prominent personality here in the UK when it comes to public speaking, all things speaking. Plus, she's also a fellow Italian. And so she's also appeared on my podcast a few years ago, the Ideas on Stage podcast. And that's how we know each other.
Wow. So cool. Yeah, she's amazing. Yeah. So does that mean you know James Taylor as well?
James Taylor?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Okay. They run a podcast together called, what is it called, Taylor? Man, I feel so bad. Maria James, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, now I know.
I forget.
I know who you mean now. Yeah. I don't. Yeah, I've seen the podcast. I've seen them together. Mm-hmm. I didn't remember the name. I don't know him personally. No.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's another great show. Cool listeners, go check it out. Yep.
Great presenter. What's up, Maria? What's up, James?
Yep.
Hope you like the show. Andrea, one of the things we also noticed, we were kind of skimming through your website, and you have this 10-year vision to help 1,000 purpose-driven entrepreneurs make an impact and be more memorable. So 2 questions, actually. 1, how is that going so far? And 2, did you come up with the phrase 10-year vision from EOS? Are you familiar with that?
No. What's EOS?
Oh, yeah. It's a business framework. Yeah. It's called the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And one of their core philosophies is like very purposefully setting a 10-year vision. So something we use at Speakerflow. And so as soon as we saw that, we were like, we wonder if you've got some direction there. But how did you land on that 10-year vision, and how's that going so far?
Yeah. So, it doesn't come from there, but I guess the approach is very similar. I believe that having a very clear vision is crucial in business, and it's going well. There's still room to explore and to help and to contribute. And the reason why I have that vision is because both my parents have had their experience being very small entrepreneurs, and as a kid, I've seen both the challenges of them being able to, or trying to raise 4 kids at the same time while trying to run the business as well. But I've also seen the spark, the entrepreneurial spirit, the enthusiasm, and the proactive approach to life. And that's why I always wanted to be an entrepreneur myself. And in that process, I realized that great business owners, great entrepreneurs, first of all, are great communicators. And that's why then I started my journey to trying to become the best communicator, the best presenter I could be. And that's what I did. And then at some point I said, well, I could actually help others now improve their presentation skills. And also because I have two big passions. One passion is around all things public speaking, and the other passion is around business as a force for good. I believe that business can and should be a force for good in the world. And that's why today we often work with purpose driven entrepreneurs, business leaders, and their teams who want to grow their business, increase their influence, make a positive impact in the world. And we do that through great presenting.
Man, that's such a great, and I resonate so much with that. Like, we're serving the same audience from different angles, obviously. And I mean, we talk about this all the time. Like, it's such an honor, really, to be working with these powerful people that are out there trying to make the world a better place in one way or another. And we get to experience their, I don't know, awesomeness by being involved in their business. It's a pretty cool thing, which is great. And it feels like we're able to amplify their voice and make them go bigger and louder. And like, that was one of the core foundational principles of speaker flow. So we share that with you, I guess is what I'm saying.
I love that. I love that, Austin. That's great. Amplify their voice because, yeah, like you, I believe that anyone can and should use their voice, their story, their message, so they can achieve their objectives. Whether that's could be growing their business, increase their influence, their credibility, making a positive impact in the world. But it all comes from our ability to use our voice, to share a message, to communicate our story.
Yeah, totally. So one thing, as you were telling your story, I'm just curious about, like, did you know, like, to be a good communicator, like, you just immediately made the leap to, I need to learn how to present, or like, where did you start on that path of, like, in order to be a good business person, to learn communication? Like, did you always know presenting was the path, and was ideas on stage always kind of in the back of your head of something you wanted to do, or was that a journey that you got to creating that?
It was definitely a journey, and I think that now looking backwards, then you start connecting the dots.
Yeah.
But then at the time that wasn't very clear.
Yeah.
Many years ago, another reason why I ended up doing what I'm doing is because many years ago, when I was at university in Italy, I came across a book that really changed my life. Presentation Zen. I don't know if you know it, guys. Gar Reynolds.
No.
Presentation Zen.
Okay.
That book opened my eyes to what it really means to create and deliver powerful presentations. And it also made me understand that most presentations suck.
Yeah.
And that's why from there I started that journey. And the very first thing I did, it wasn't ideas on stage. The very first thing was I started a blog, Echo Presentations, that maybe is still somewhere on the internet. And I was super passionate about it. Every week I would publish a new article, and I thought it was great. But I think in a couple of years, maybe, I don't know, 2 people saw my articles in total. One was my wife, so it wasn't really making an impact. But I didn't give up. And then in that journey that you were talking about, Taylor, then eventually that blog became a company, which is now Ideas on Stage UK.
Wow, man, that's so cool. And I love that you just started by getting your ideas out there. I'm starting with a blog. Blogs are great because they are no barrier to entry ways to just share information with the world. So your journey starts with just creating value. I think that's huge. It speaks to you as a person. So respect.
Yeah, for me, it was the little value that I was creating, and then that became a hobby because some people wanted to do something connected to where I could help. But it was more of a hobby at the beginning, and then it became work.
Yeah. Well, we're very excited to unpack this experience that you've gone on. And I just also want to set the tone just a little bit. And we talked about
Mhm.
this before the show, but a lot of our listeners are people that already consider themselves to be good presenters. And I think a lot of them are. So, but a lot of our listeners are early on too. And maybe they're just toying with the idea of this. So I think this conversation speaks to the whole spectrum. And I think that's awesome. Um, let's talk about like the message though, right? Because part of being a great communicator is having something to say. And I know one of the things that you talk about as one of your skill sets is helping people come up with a captivating message. This is one of the things you mentioned that you'd like to talk to us about. And I'm very excited to talk to you about that. Captivating though seems to be such a relative term, right? Because a message is only captivating if it's relevant to the person that's hearing it. And so I think that a way to maybe bridge the gap for our listeners that are just starting versus those that have been doing this for a while is how do we bridge that gap between the thing that we feel passionate about and then translating that to the right audience in a way that makes it captivating?
Yeah, we need to unpack this because there are many elements in that question. But you're right, Austin. The most important thing is that a message has to be relevant to our audience. And one of the key mistakes I see, and this is also with experienced professionals, is that the very first thing we do when we need to prepare a presentation, so many people either just open up PowerPoint and put together some slides, or maybe if they are more experienced, they start thinking about the message, their objectives, the structure, the outline, what they want to communicate, which is much, much better than just opening up PowerPoint. But it's not the very first thing we want to do. Now, you said it has to be relevant to the audience. Absolutely. When we are communicating with someone, we need to start with them. When we give a presentation, it's their presentation, not ours. It's always the audience's presentation. Now, think of a presentation as a present. If I want to give you a present, it's your present, not mine.
Hmm.
And so I need to make sure that I know you so that I can buy something that you like. A presentation is very similar. When we give people a presentation, it's their presentation, not ours. And so we need to make sure, before you asked about the message, before we even think about the message, it's impossible to develop a captivating message without starting with the audience. We need to start with the audience in mind. The very first thing we do when we work with our clients, we always start with what we call the ABC of preparation: audience, burning needs, and context. ABC. So we need to take some time and ask ourselves some questions about the audience. Who are they? Not only the audience, their burning needs. What do they really need? What do they expect from our presentation? And also the context. For example, how much time do we have for that presentation? How many people will we have in front of us? Is it face to face? Is it online? It's online. Perfect. What tool are we going to use? How are we going to use it? How and when are we planning to interact with the audience? So that's the very. I can give you an example if you want.
Yeah.
But I don't want to go long with my answers. So you lead the conversation.
Please do.
Up to
We
you.
can totally go that route. Yeah, let's do an example.
Right. So, for example, some time ago, we were working with a client. Her name is Marie from Paris. Marie is an executive. She's an expert in leadership, and she was invited by an association in Finland to give a talk about leadership. And she was super excited. It was one of her first international speaking opportunities. And so she prepared really well. She knew her message. She told us that she had 50 beautiful slides, and also she rehearsed properly. So she was ready to go. She flew to Finland the day before the conference, then arrived there on the day, half an hour before the audience, because she wanted to make sure that she had time to set things up. And when she was about to connect her laptop to the screen, she realized that there was no screen. So, a little bit of panic, she went and asked the organizers, assuming that they would say, "Oh, sorry, Marie, now we are going to fix this for you." But what they did instead, they started laughing.
Oh.
They started laughing. And so she says, "Why are you laughing?" And they say, "Look, Marie, you want to show 50 slides, but actually you've been invited to give a talk to the association in Finland of blind people."
Oh, wow.
Blind
Oh
people.
boy.
Did not see that coming.
Now I know it's an extreme example.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen all the time, but it happened for real. Marie was very well prepared. She thought that she had a captivating message. She was very well prepared, apart from one thing. She didn't know in detail, she didn't know her audience. She didn't even take the time to translate the name of the association from Finnish to French, and she would have realized that perhaps there was no need to have 50 beautiful slides.
Wow, what a story. There's definitely something to be said there.
Yeah. This is a great story. I like stories that poignantly illustrate the point.
Mhm.
Like there's no being unsure of what you're talking about right there. So, and I love that. Like it's really easy, and I might make some people mad here. So Taylor, I'm sorry if we catch fire for this, but
No, I'll just send them to you anyway. So
okay,
you can deal
great.
with it.
Email me, people. There's an ego that has to be involved with somebody that's getting up on stage. Like you have to be so confident, right? And I'm not even saying that this is necessarily a bad thing. More people are afraid of public speaking than dying. So like you have to have some way to feel confident going out and doing your thing. But it's so easy to make this type of work about you, when in reality, it's not about you. You're providing a service to an audience, and they have needs, they have problems that you need to be solving. And so this is a really clear illustration of why you have to focus on the audience that's in front of you and get over yourself and what you think you want to say. It's not about what you want to say. It's about what the audience needs to hear and whether or not you're the person to be able to deliver that message. So you better know that ahead of time, or at least prepare yourself so that you're the best person prepared to deliver that message, right?
Yeah, and Austin, also because you mentioned something which is super important, you mentioned confidence. Now, often people think, again, even experienced presenters, too often I see that people think that confidence comes from, we're talking about confidence in public speaking, okay? We think that confidence comes from some sort of wishful thinking or internal attitude, whereas it has nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Confidence in presenting, in sharing your ideas in front of somebody comes from three things, in my view. Knowing your audience, again, it goes back to the audience, knowing your message, and being prepared. That's it. If you know your audience, if you really know your audience, if you really know your message, and if you are prepared, and we can talk about that, how to be prepared, then you will be confident.
Yeah. Wow. I love that distinction. It's definitely not internal. There's this funny story. I think it's I forget where the phrase comes from, but it kind of goes in line with fear, because it's kind of like the opposite of being confident. You're kind of fearful about something. And somebody told me this once, and it was something along the lines of, you're usually fearful for two reasons: either because your life is being threatened and you should be afraid, or you don't have enough information. And that's really all fear tends to boil down to. And so it kind of feels like what you're saying is the opposite of that.
Love it. I love it. Either you are being threatened, your life is being threatened, or you don't have enough information. I love it.
Yeah. So let's talk about getting enough information and what it means to be prepared. So we talked about a little bit about, knowing your audience, of course, and I'm sure we'll touch on the message part of things as well. But let's talk about that preparation piece. Like, how does somebody like actually prepare for that? And I think there's like a higher level point of this too. Like, are we talking about like preparing your message for everybody you serve, and like that main message you want to spread? Is it at the individual level with each client that you're working with? Like, how do we prepare both our business and what our message is, but also at the individual presentation level?
Yeah, it's preparation from a message perspective, and it's preparation also from a delivery perspective.
Okay.
Because yes, we need to have a captivating, a compelling message. We also need to be able to deliver the message in a way that's comfortable and convincing. From a message perspective, I think, and that's what we do for ourselves with our clients, there is a structured way of thinking about presenting. We need to follow a clear process when preparing, designing, delivering a presentation. And that starts with the foundation, which is about the audience and your objectives. We've got 5 steps. I always go through 5 steps when I prepare a presentation, either for myself or with or for my clients. Foundation, ideation, creation, illustration, and connection.
Oh, nice.
And we go through the entire presentation process. The foundation is about the audience. Ideation, we need to brainstorm. Once we know the audience, we need to brainstorm effectively in a structured way so that we can come up with lots of interesting ideas that then we can include in the content of our presentation. And those ideas should not just be the concepts. Like, as you said, Austin, it should be also stories. Stories are memorable, examples, anecdotes, analogies. We can talk about all of these techniques if you want. So that's the idea generation. Then step 3, creation. We've got the ideas. We need to be able to create a clear and engaging storyline from the very beginning, where we need to capture the audience's attention. How can we do that? We need to communicate our key messages. And then to the very end, where we need to make it very clear to the audience what was our point, why should they care about it, and what do we want them to do as a result of our presentation. So creation, the creation of a storyline. Then illustration. If we are using slides, for example, we don't have to do it all the time, but when we do, we need to be able to illustrate a message in an effective way. We don't want to see the typical death by PowerPoint with lots of text and bullet. People can't read and listen at the same time. And then connection. Once we have clear message, maybe we've amplified a message effectively from a visual perspective, we need to be able to connect with the audience. We need to be able to deliver a message in a way that's comfortable and convincing. And from that perspective, from a delivery perspective, the most important thing we can do, any great presenter rehearses his or her presentation. It's impossible to get to a point where you can confidently deliver your message unless you rehearse. We can talk about that in more detail, but again, I'll give it back to you, and then you decide where you want to take this conversation.
Oh man, well, we could go in so many directions. That was such good stuff.
We could, man, that's great.
I love simple processes, so thank you for distilling that down into 5 steps. I want to touch on a bunch of things. Let's go. We talked about audience, so let's just go to the next logical point, and then we'll see how much time we have. Creation. That's step 2, right? You're creating the 3. Sorry, ideation and then creation.
Although, it's feel free to you can call it 2 or 3, but okay. Just let me know what. Okay.
So I think it was the ideation phase. Then you were talking about this, but you said structured brainstorming. That phrase caught my attention. What do you mean by structured brainstorming? Yeah.
So what that means is simple. Now, the best way to brainstorm effectively in a structured way is this. Essentially, what you want to do is you want to ask you are preparing a presentation, you want to ask yourself, and this is what we do with our clients in a very practical way. You want to ask yourself 3 questions before the presentation and the same questions after the presentation. So before the presentation, the first question is, okay, once we know the audience, what do they know about our subject? What do they know about my message? And by the way, what is it that they don't know about it, if it's relevant to capture? And you come up with a few ideas. And then you go down. It's not just what they know. What do they believe? What do they feel in relation to your subject? These are not the facts. This is what maybe they think they know. That's what they think. It's true. Maybe that's not the case. You may want to change the belief or the feeling thanks to your presentation. And also, that's not enough. Another question, what are they doing today in relation to your subject, in relation to your topic, to your message? And you come up with a few ideas for each of these 3 questions. What do they know? What do they believe or feel? What do they do? And then you repeat the same process, thinking about after your presentation. You see, that's what I mean by a structured approach. And you want to start with from the bottom. What do I want my audience to do after this presentation? And then you go up. Right, what do they need to believe? What do they need to feel so that they'll take those actions? And what do they need to know as well? And if you do that, then you come up with lots of interesting ideas. And then it's mainly a matter of once you've got these ideas, then we need to go beyond the ideas, beyond the concept, because otherwise it remains too abstract and conceptual. And so, okay, we know this is a belief that we want to generate. Okay, is there a story that we can tell to illustrate the point? Can we give an example? Can we include an analogy? For example, if it's a technical concept, analogies are very powerful. So that's what I mean by a structured brainstorming process.
Wow. That is so tactical. Holy
it's
cow.
like
I just got an
scientific.
education. I know. Well, what I love about that breakdown, Andrea, is it almost kind of creates the through line for the story that you need to create, basically. Because if you know like what they're feeling and what they're doing currently, and you know what actions they want to take afterwards, and then what you want them to believe afterward, it almost the story just kind of lays itself out as soon as you get to the creation phase. Like, am I understanding that right?
Yeah, because what happens is that then you're right, you already have all of the ideas that you may want to include in the content of your presentation. And these ideas are not just focused on what the audience needs to know, which is important, but it's not the only thing. You see, this process pushes you as a presenter to also think about, to come up with ideas and messages that also address what they need to believe, feel, and do, which is the most important thing in any presentation. And you're right, Taylor. Then once you've got these ideas, often what happens, and you can do this exercise in listeners in practice, you can start grouping ideas together. Often you can see that there are patterns, and you look at all of your ideas. Oh, the first idea that I have is very much connected to the fourth one and to the seventh one. And the third idea is connected to this one. And so you can define groups. And for example, what you could do, very powerful in communication, you could define 3 key groups, 3 key messages. And if you do that, and this is part then of it's part of the creation stage, you've got 3 key messages. So if we want to keep it very, very high level, there is more to it, but top level, if you want to create a clear storyline in a presentation, you want to have a quick and interesting introduction that catches your audience's attention. Then 3 key messages. The rule of 3, one of the simplest and most powerful principles in communication. It's very hard for all of us to remember more than roughly 3 things in short-term memory. 3 key messages. Of course, depending on how much time you have, you can and you should support each of your key messages with some supporting points. And those could be the stories, the examples, the analogies, a bit of data as well. You want a good mix of logic and emotion. And then a very powerful conclusion, making it very clear to your audience. Again, what was your point? Why should they care about it? What do you want them to do?
Oh man, you know what I love about this structure so much is that it's distilling down like the key components that make the presentation valuable, and then you can basically just it sounds like swap pieces in and out based on the context, bringing back the words you used earlier of like how the presentation is going to go. Like you have 60 minutes, okay, well, you're going to add these few stories. You only have 45, we'll remove these ones because they're maybe not as valuable, and you're still getting the points across, but you're expanding or contracting it based on the amount of time that you have available. And I know that's something that a lot of the people that I talk to have had questions about is how do you adapt your content properly? So I don't know if this is the main point that you're trying to make right now. I don't think it is necessarily, but I think it's a symptom of structuring your material in this way is that you have the ability to more or less customize it based on the context of the situation in front of you. Am I reading into that correctly?
Absolutely, 100%. Because if you think about it, if you have 10 minutes in a presentation, quick intro, 3 key messages, conclusion, more or less. That's if we want to keep it high level. Now, if you've got an hour, instead of just communicating 3 key messages, you could have, for example, 3 supporting points for each of the 3 key messages because you've got more time. And so you could have key message 1, and then you tell a story that illustrates the point. You include some data, so you touch both the emotional part of people's brain with the story and the logical, the analytical part with some data. And then you give them an example that makes them understand why that point is relevant to them, why they should care about it. And then you repeat the process. Message 2, story, data, and something relevant to them. Message 3, story, data, something relevant to them. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that this is the only approach you can follow, but you're right. It works both if you've got 1 minute, 10 minutes, an hour, 9 hours.
Oh my gosh.
It's awesome. Well, what's nice about this, and so we're very much systems people here at SpeakerFlow, how we build business systems, basically. And what I love about this, normally when we brought on presentation, experts, not everyone, but it can be abstract sometimes about how the presentation needs to go together. And there are a lot of good ideas. But Andrea, you've laid out a system for not having to reinvent the wheel every time you have a presentation. I mean, you have a process that you can follow over and over again. Don't get me wrong, there's still some brain work that needs to be done, but it really eliminates a lot of the guesswork to asking yourself the question, like, am what I'm creating right now, is that powerful? And I feel like if you follow the system, it's impossible to create an unpowerful presentation if you dive deep into each one of these 5 steps you're talking about.
And Taylor, I'm glad that you see it this way. And this addresses one of the key problems I see all the time. And the problem is that so many people, whether we are aware of it or not, either we follow an uncertain process, a process which is not structured, or we don't follow a process at all in the first place. Maybe we think we are following a process, but then if you go deeper, is that really, you call it a system, a process, a system? No. And so many people, including experienced presenters, tell me, you know what, Andrea, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been presenting for a long time. But now that I think about it, I'm not sure. When I do it, when I present, I'm not sure if I'm following the right approach, the right process, the right system. And so many people, it's not that they lack confidence in themselves or in their ability to deliver a great presentation, although sometimes that's also an issue, but often they lack confidence in the process. And that creates discomfort when presenting in front of some people.
Right. Which is obviously going to be detrimental to the delivery of that presentation, whether you're conscious of it or not. If you're feeling unsettled about it, then, it's going to be less convincing and people might not be as transformed or be willing to take action afterwards. So you're really giving confidence, not only creating powerful presentations, but you're helping people gain confidence in their ability to actually deliver the thing, to tie back to what we talked about really early on in the show, amplify their voice. So wow, Austin, do you feel like you got an education today, man?
I don't
I feel like
know
I just
if
need to
I've-
re-listen, take notes.
I know. I haven't learned this much about presenting in any 30-minute period of time in my entire life. Like, that was amazing.
No, seriously.
I feel like I actually have a box for this. Yeah. And look, like, I get really excited about this stuff because, as Taylor just mentioned, like, although we serve professional speakers as one of our core audiences, we're not speakers by trade. We're entrepreneurs. We're business people, and we just happen to know this business really well, and that's great. But my confidence as a speaker is very low, and so I get very excited anytime I feel like I have this very abstract thing that I'm talking about all the time made a lot more simple. So thank you for that. I really have learned a lot today. I'm really excited to continue learning more from you as we dig more into your content.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you. Great to hear that.
Definitely. So, Andrea, if people want to learn more about the work you're doing, what have you got for them? How do they get in touch? How do they learn more?
Yeah, just a couple of things, and thanks for that. One is I'm mainly on LinkedIn.
Great.
So they can find me there. Andrea, Andrea Pacini, Pacini. They'll find my name somewhere in the video as well. But LinkedIn is my main platform. One thing that could be useful for people, for your listeners, is we have a free online tool that people can use if they're curious to assess their current presentation skills, public speaking skills. The URL for this is super simple. The name of a company, Ideas on Stage. So ideasonstage.com/score. When you score a goal.
Nice.
Okay. Ideasonstage.com/score. It's the confident presenter. We talked about confidence before. So we call it the confident presenter scorecard. People, all they need to do is, it's for free. They just need to answer a few questions. It takes less than 3 minutes. And then they'll get a score, what their score means to them. And also it identifies opportunities for improvement. And if people, when you take the scorecard, you also get a free copy of a book, a free PDF copy of a book, Business Presentation Revolution, that Phil Wakenell, a colleague of mine, wrote last year. Business Presentation Revolution.
Wow, awesome. We're going to go check that out first and foremost. I will make sure that link both to your LinkedIn profile, so go connect everybody, and to the scorecard is inside of the show notes. So click the description. You'll see the link. Go check that out. It's going to be super valuable. Let us know how it goes. Andrea, thank you so much for coming on the show today. We have learned a ton. And honestly, Austin, we keep talking about having like hour or 2 hour long conversations. I think this is definitely one we might have to unpack at that length at some point in the future. So
maybe we convince you to come back.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So, hey guys, if you like this episode, don't forget to rate it, like it, subscribe to it. And if you want more awesome resources like this, go to speakerflow.com/resources. Thank you so much for chiming in. I just wanted to take a second to thank our sponsor, Auxbus. Auxbus is the all-in-one suite of tools you need to run your podcast. And it's actually what we run here at Speakerflow for Technically Speaking. It makes planning podcasts simple. It makes recording podcasts simple. It even makes publishing podcasts to the masses simple. And quite honestly, Technically Speaking wouldn't be up as soon as it is without Auxbus. Thank you so much, Auxbus. And if you are interested in checking Auxbus out, whether you're starting a podcast or you have one currently, get our special offer, auxbus.com/speakerflow, or click the link below in our show notes.
Thanks for tuning in today. Check the show notes for more info and see you next time. Later.